Hi guys, this is Samana2183, Aquatic Lover 31 on Instagram and Andy Basuki on Facebook. I'd like to make a very quick video to talk about something that you guys probably have, whether it is something you guys have seen before in the planted tank or just your tanks in general, especially when you add plants into a new aquarium. A few things you can probably find as hitchhikers from those plants. Of course, unless you disinfect them by dipping them in some kind of solution to prevent that from happening, is probably the appearance of one of these guys. I think you guys would probably find these guys that are grazing on my hair grass here, and as well as you can see some of them is on my driftwood over here. Yes, if you haven't guessed by now, these are Malaysian trumpet snails. They are quite a common species of snail that might have found themselves sometimes as hitchhikers in your aquarium, whether it's just a planted tank like I said, or just a normal aquarium where you like to put plants in them. They're actually native to subtropical and tropical northern Africa, believe it or not, as well as southern parts of Asia and Southeast Asia as well. And as the name goes, from Malaysian trumpet snail, yes, these guys do originate in one of these origin points of these snails come from Malaysia itself. Now, because of the actions of probably some aquarists back then, these snails have found on themselves also on foothold on other areas in South America and even probably in the USA, in quite a few places, probably just by accidental release when from the aquarium hobby. So some of them has already colonized rivers, some rivers in the States as well. Now these snails are mostly freshwater, though they can and probably tolerate brackish water as well, though they can't up to a certain salinity before they die off. Keeping these snails are actually very hardy, as you can, and you guys probably know, these snails are pretty much bulletproof in terms of the water parameters, but it's best to keep these snails, if you want to keep them, in slightly harder water, because very soft and acidic water aren't very beneficial to these snails, because the acidic water hinders their hinders the growth as well as the hardness of their shells. Temperatures wise, they like to go between 18 to 25 to maybe almost 30 degrees Celsius. I'm not sure how much is that in Fahrenheit. And these guys are quite welcome. I mean, like, to some they say it's their pests because of how fast they reproduce and everything. But to some of us, it's for their presence are actually quite beneficial, because one, they do eat microalgae that develops probably on the surface of your decor, as well as aerate your substrate, because these guys, when they do burrow and then just tunnel to the substrate, they act as something like earthworms. They aerate the substrate and prevent any pockets of gas from building up and just releasing the water. That's very important, because sometimes when you have a very deep sandbed or substrate, you sometimes, you know, because of the compressed nature of the substrate, you might find like some gas pockets here and there that you might not know, and they just do help to aerate the substrate, so preventing them to happening. Now, like I said, these guys actually reproduce quite asexually. They don't lay eggs, so as far as how fast they reproduce, it really depends. You can ask from person to person, and it quite varies. And I myself don't really keep track on how fast or how much we reproduce, but I do know one thing is like to limit the speed of this growth of the these snails is like never overfeed, because if you overfeed, sometimes it's not only going to affect the water quality. This also will, you know, results in a bloom of bad algae, as well as, you know, these snails, not just the Malaysian trumpet snails, but other snails as well, like the ram's horn and everything, which I might get to sometime. Like I said, one of the ways you can control the growth rate of the reproductive rate of these snails is, well, of course, one, not to overfeed, but also if you guys don't like the aesthetic look that, you know, your tank is overrun with sort of overrun with trumpet snails, you probably can use some snail eaters. One of which probably the assassin snail, which can also help to, you know, keep the numbers in check. For a larger tank, you can use like probably not just snail eaters like the assassin snail. You might be able to use pea puffers as well, but pea puffers, be warned that they are quite nippy. So as long as you have enough snails to keep them busy, I don't think they will go after your other fish, but just keep an eye out for them. Loaches, they also do a very good job at keeping these guys under control, but like I said, try not to get any fish like loaches or like clown loaches or eels, just for the specific reason of getting rid of snails, when you can, you know, control them as manually as, you know. One way is, of course, to remove any snails you can try and remove. The other of course, to limit the number of foods that they get by not overfeeding. Of course, the more easier method is, like, if you really want to use something to control the numbers, is probably just use pea puffers. Just watch out for, like I said, for these guys can, as pea puffers do have a reputation of being fin nippers and a bit vicious. Those who are, you know, those fish that which have long trailing fins. So like angelfish, you really have to keep an eye out. And like I said, also assassin snails. Well, I guess that's it for now. I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks, and like always, this is Summoner 2183 signing off. Bye bye.